Originally, there was no controversy in history with regard to the fact that Diaoyu belongs to China. However, with the rise of Japan in modern times, and with the gradual rise of militarism in Japan, Japan began to claim possession of many territories that had not belonged to it. In 1872, Japan turned the Ryukyu Kingdom into Ryukyu-han, forcibly making Ryukyu a vassal state of Japan. In 1879, Japan forcibly announced the annexation of Ryukyu and changed its name to Okinawa Prefecture. Japan has since cast greedy eyes on China's Diaoyu. In 1884, 5 years after Japan's annexation of Ryukyu, Koga Shiro, a Japanese engaged in fishing industry, claimed the discovery of the uninhabited island and applied for Japanese government's permission to rent the island.
这个古贺陈四郎他在1884年申请开发，没有获得批准。为什么呢？因为冲绳县的调查就是说这些岛屿呢是中国已经命名的，早就被中国的册封史所了解的。
Japan's attempts to occupy Diaoyu were clearly recorded in Japan diplomatic documents compiled by the Japanese Foreign Ministry. Relevant documents evidently show that the Japanese government intended to occupy Diaoyu, but refrained from acting impetuously as it was fully aware of China's sovereignty over these islands. Japan waged the Sino-Japanese War 10 years later in 1894. Towards the end of November that year, Japanese forces seized the Chinese port of Lushan, then known as Port Arthur, and the Japanese government was convinced that they would win the war. The Japanese Minister of Internal Affairs, Yasushi Nomura, wrote to Foreign Minister Mutsu Munemitsu in December that the circumstances have now changed and called for a decision by the cabinet on the issue of setting up sovereignty markers in Diaoyu and incorporating the island into Japan's territory. On January 14, 1895, Ito Hirobumi, then Japanese Prime Minister, held a cabinet meeting in secrecy. Without informing the Chinese, Japan unilaterally decided to put Diaoyu under the jurisdiction of Okinawa Prefecture and didn't make its moves public to the international community afterwards. In this way, Japan stole China's Diaoyu under the smoke of gunpowder of the Sino-Japanese War. On April 17, 1895, the defeated Qing government was forced to sign the Treaty of Shimonoseki, ceding Taiwan and its affiliated islands, including Diaoyu to the Japanese. Japan went to great pains to deceive the public. After successfully stealing Diaoyu, the Japanese government leased it to the Koga family free of charge for 30 years, and then sold them to the family. Japan didn't call these islands Senkaku Islands until 1900. Having seized Diaoyu through illegal means, Japan postponed time and again, officially marking Diaoyu as part of its territory on its maps.
这一本呢，日本国事调查是日本从大正7年、民国7年开始做，经过了3年以后，在大正10年的时候出版了一本日本国事调查，里面它的所有的领土，包括从北方的库页岛，一直到朝鲜、中国的关东州，一直来到台湾、澎湖、青岛里面，这个里面很清楚的记载日本的方位在什么地方，几度几分，非常的详细的岛屿，却没有看到尖阁列岛。
In 1937, Japan's war of aggression against China broke out in an all-around way. In December 1941, the Pacific War erupted. On December 1st, 1943, China, the United Kingdom, and the United States jointly issued the Cairo Declaration, which stated in explicit terms that all the territories Japan has stolen from the Chinese, such as Manchuria, Formosa, Taiwan, and the Pescadores, shall be restored to the Republic of China. Japan will also be expelled from all other territories which she has taken by violence and greed. In July 1945, China, the United Kingdom, and the United States jointly issued the Potsdam Proclamation, which stated in Article 8, the terms of the Cairo Declaration shall be carried out and Japanese sovereignty shall be limited to the islands of Honshu, Hokkaido, Kyushu, Shikoku, and such minor islands as we determine. This was less than 1 month before Japan announced its unconditional surrender in August 1945.
Es gibt in der Potsdamer Erklärung keine genaue Auflistung aller Territorien, die nach dem Kriegsende wieder an China zurückfallen sollen. Es wird nur die Mandschurei und Taiwan namentlich genannt. Und zusätzlich wird erwähnt, dass alle Gebiete, die von Japan besetzt wurden, auch schon in den 30er Jahren des 20. Jahrhunderts wieder zurückfallen sollen an China.
On September 2, 1945, the Japanese government accepted the Potsdam Proclamation in explicit terms with the Japanese instrument of surrender and pledged to faithfully fulfill the obligations enshrined in the provisions of the Potsdam Proclamation. The Potsdam Proclamation and the Cairo Declaration thus became the legal basis for Diaoyu Dao's return to China's sovereignty. On January 29, 1946, the Supreme Commander for the Allied Powers Instruction, SCAPIN, number 677, clearly defined Japan's power of administration to include the four main islands of Japan, Hokkaido, Honshu, Kyushu, and Shikoku, and the approximately 1,000 smaller adjacent islands, including the Tsushima Islands and the Ryukyu Islands north of the 30th parallel of north latitude. By limiting Japan's territory to north of the 30th parallel of north latitude, it clearly defines that the southwestern part of Japan does not include Diaoyu Dao and its affiliated islands. In 1958, the Chinese government released a statement on the territorial sea announcing that Taiwan and its adjacent islands belong to China. However, with the arrival of the Cold War, the United States strengthened its strategic deployment in East Asia and, at the same time, changed its policy toward Japan. On September 4, 1951, the United States and a number of other countries met for the peace conference with Japan in San Francisco. China was not invited. Before the conference, the Chinese government issued a statement: if the People's Republic of China is excluded from the preparation, formulation, and signing of the peace treaty with Japan, it will, no matter what its content and outcome are, be regarded as illegal and therefore invalid by the Central People's Government. Japan, the United States, and other countries signed the Treaty of Peace with Japan, commonly known as the Treaty of San Francisco. The treaty placed the Nansei Islands south of the 29th parallel of north latitude under United Nations trusteeship, with the United States as the sole administering authority. It should be pointed out that the Nansei Islands, placed under the administration of the United States in the Treaty of Peace with Japan, did not include Diaoyu Dao. China has never recognized the San Francisco Peace Treaty since its beginning. From the perspective of international convention, it has no legally binding force. Article 34 of the Vienna Convention on the Law of Treaties, 1969, stipulates a treaty does not create either obligations or rights for a third state without its consent.
1951年，美国用这个西方阵营的成员和日本签订了一个旧金山合约，结束了以美军为主的盟军总部对日本的占领。但这个过程当中，排除了饱受战争祸患的，并且是这个抗日战争、反法西斯战争重要力量的中国在外，那这本身就是违法。